Retro Mondays.
Hey, what's happening, gamers? Welcome back to another Retro Mondays. This is a show about retro and turning Mondays into fun days. Personally, I like the old slogan a bit better, making retro and Mondays fun again. Anyway, I know what you're thinking. What's with this guy and all the Konami games? Well, to sum up, Konami was and still is one of the best video game people in the industry. Our next game really took One Man Army to the next level, if you catch my meaning. Green Beret released in 1985 in the arcades, 1987 for the Famicom, 1988 in the UK, and the US didn't get the game until 1989 under the name Rush and Attack, which is funny considering the Cold War had ended, so the game couldn't be called Russian Attack, even though you're still fighting the Soviets. Anyway, now there are some slight differences to the arcade and home releases though. Most notably is in the arcade version, the soldier's mission is to rescue prisoners of war before they are executed. Whereas in the Nintendo port, the object of the game is to destroy a USSR nuclear missile site. Only in the arcade is our hero actually wearing green. He's garbed in blue for most of the ports. Before I forget too, the flamethrower was actually removed for the NES games. Rush and Attack is a running and gunning game, or in this case, running and stabbing. Lots of stabbing. Like most NES games, extra stages were added to make the game much longer than the arcade game. Rush and Attack also could be played solo or co-op. Besides stabbing, other weapons become available by defeating the Yellow Soldiers. These weapons consist of a rocket launcher, grenades, pistol, and the star. All these power-ups have either limited ammo or are timed. At the end of each stage, you face a boss, if you can call those guys bosses. So what's wrong with this game? Well, the game isn't really difficult, as one can eventually have everything memorized, which is a good thing. Still, it does have some stuff that really bugs me. Jumping is kind of sluggish and not always responsive. Instead of being an actual button in this game, it's the up arrow on the gamepad, which actually doesn't always work out well. Enemy's main purpose of the game is to overwhelm the player by sheer numbers alone. Only two guys are a real threat in this game. Actually, the rest are pretty stupid. Even the red soldiers are a joke, if you can avoid their jump kicks of death. They all have guns strapped to their backs, right? So instead of actually shooting the guy carrying a knife, they run at him. That makes no sense, right? Quick, Boris! The guy is chasing us with knife! Let us run into him and he shall die! Which, oddly enough, it does end up killing you. Anyway, players only need to watch out for the commandos in this game. These guys are tough. They shoot you, climb ladders, chase you, and can even evade your attacks. Those soldiers can be a pain in this game, but the mines are the worst. If you don't have the bazooka on hand, avoiding these mines and enemies at the same time isn't always easy. The biggest flaws with this game is it's too short and there are no continues. Even non-speedrunners can beat this game in about 30 minutes. I wasn't upset to discover the game had no continues, but when I learned that the Famicom game could let players continue, boy was I mad! Not being able to continue made Russian Attack a lot harder for the US gamers than it actually really was, and that's a major bummer. Moving on to the things that I actually did like about this game. The gameplay is actually very well done, and it's simple to pick up and play. I also like the choices that we had during the game, like players could stay on the ground and fight, or seek higher ground to get away from the enemies. Doing so actually makes the game a lot easier too, because you only have to avoid the guys that can actually come after you. The two new weapons add a change to the gameplay mechanics, and it's for the better. The star is actually an homage to Super Mario Bros., plus it was cool to have the same instant death touch that the bad guys do. While the pistol is a very rare power-up, it is the most useful weapon in your arsenal and lasts a lot longer than the star. Plus, it's a lot of fun to mow down the bad guys as long as you can. Single player was okay, but the real fun lies in the co-op play. We all know that when the player dies in the solo game, you have to restart the level. In 2-player though, you respawn next to your buddy. This just makes the game more fun to play. Although I was kind of hoping that the second player would be in green instead of red. That can get kind of confusing since you're fighting, well, reds. Music for Rush and Attack was okay, but I was bothered slightly that it took more than one person to actually compose the score. Still, I gotta hand it to the legendary Chris Holland for providing an awesome arrangement of the Stage one theme you're hearing right now. You have to agree, it made this 8-bit score sound even better. By the way, in 2011, look for our first album featuring the video game covers from my reviews. Okay, my plug is over, back to the review. Rush and Attack was able to spawn a sequel called Missing in Action, which was only available in the arcade, sadly. Konami was also able to release various ports and collections over the years for the arcade version. Konami and this developer announced a 2.5D successor called Rush and Attack X-Patriot for a late 2010 release on Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network. My guess now is it won't release until sometime in 2011. The new game will take place 15 years after the original and features a new hero with the codename Wolf Spider. Once it releases on the PlayStation Network, expect a review from me later on. Since the NES game hasn't been re-released on the Virtual Console, or anywhere else for that matter, your best bet to play Rush and Attack is the arcade one only. But don't worry, you can play it on either Xbox Live, the Game Boy Advance, or the Nintendo DS. If you really want to play the NES game, then I advise checking out eBay. In closing, I really do think this was a fun game. I was lucky enough to hold on to this game in my collection for the last 2 decades, even though it doesn't really hold any significant memories for me, and it just kinda sat on my shelf collecting dust. But I have to say, it's a fun game, and I did enjoy playing it again, even though it was very brief. Alrighty, that does it for another Monday Retro Review. Keep checking back every Monday to see another classic game review in the old school K-Wing style. Remember, on this channel you will get vids almost every day, from reviews, walkthroughs, let's plays, and current gen reviews as well. Sonic Colors is actually the next review for you guys and gals to be on the lookout for by the 27th of November. That does it for me, gamers. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and until we meet again, gamers, God bless and happy gaming.